Beyrouthi from FS Securities, a stockbroking firm on the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. And today, as every Monday morning, I present to you the weekly report. In my presentation, I'll show you what happened last week's and what we expect this coming week. And by the way, if you like our presentation, please send us an email and give us some feedback. First of all, I want to show you the volume over the last 15 days and also the advances versus declines. You can see here, out of the last 7 days, we've seen that there were more bearish positions, more declines than advances. And when we had one advance, you see the volume went down. When we had on Friday in major declines, being the last day of the year, financial year, the volume was high and people decided to sell. Over the full week, we can see that the advances over declines, you can see here, 48% advanced, and the rest was actually advanced and declines and no ups or downs. So we can see here that the market was very cautious as we approach the end of the financial year. Now what I'm going to show you here now, the 2 weeks presentation. We can see here that the Dow over last week dropped 120 points because the market did not know what to expect out of the Osaka meeting, and especially what the trade talk between China and the US was going to eventuate. However, over the last 2 years, the market continued to be 2% higher despite the decline last week. Over the last 2 weeks, over the 2 weeks, all the indices were in positive area. The American dollar receded over the last 2 weeks by 1.4%, which that made the Australian dollar stronger. Remember, the Australian dollar was down to 69, even sometimes down to 68. Well, on Saturday it closed above the 70 US cents. And also very strong against the euro, 1.5% rise. If you look at gold, gold over the last 2 weeks was up by 5% and closed on Friday at 1,412 US per ounce. Silver was up by 3.4% over the last 2 weeks, with just a small increase for gold and silver last week, but over 2 weeks, very strong performance. Crude oil, 10.8% rise over the last 2 weeks, and it continued most of it actually 2 weeks ago. Last week 1% rise, over the last 2 weeks nearly 11%. Okay, if you want to learn more about the commodities over the last across natural gas, wheat, coffee and live cattle, cotton, etc., all you have to do is talk to us. Now look at the market for us here in Australia. Over the last 2 weeks, we've seen most indices were up, except property down 1.8% and communication down 1.3%. Our market is the XJO, that's the gauge of our market, was up 1% over the last 2 weeks, but it dropped 0.5% last week. So over the last 2 weeks, we're actually up 1.5%, but then the decline of 0.5% made the 2-week rise only 1%. Our market is governed mainly by 2 sectors, that is the financial and the materials. When both of them are up strongly, the market moves up accordingly. Well, last week the financial dropped by slight percentage, 1.1%, and the material continued to zoom up by 0.4%. But you can see here that over the last 2 weeks the financial were up by 1.8% and the material was up by 1.4%. Looking across all the stocks, looking here last week, the strongest stock was actually 2.2% Rio, and Worley was up 1.2%. and Telstra was up 1.9%. However, over the last 2 weeks, Telstra was down 0.5% and Bramble was down 25%. Ria, which was a good performer last week, over the last 2 weeks was down 1.5%. So even though it was up by 2.2% last week, it actually was down nearly 2% over 2 weeks. We put these percentages, so 1 week rise is not enough to indicate the trend. However, we look at the 1 week rise or decline in relation to 2 week performance. Okay, we go next chart. Now we're looking at that's the mechanical system. Last Friday we could see that we had over the week a bullish indication for the Dow and slightly more bullish for the other two sectors. Gold continues to be bullish even though it was down last week. Crude oil continues to be bullish on the very aggressive trader side. Okay, in terms of the chart, you can see here that last week the Dow started high, went higher and finished lower, finished at the bottom of that weekly bar or candle. If you look at the weekly, that's the big picture. Before Christmas the market dropped by nearly 13%, recovered most of it and reached a point where the market was as high as before the decline in Christmas. So now the question is, where is the market going to go, especially after the announcement that President Trump met with Chairman Kim, and depends on what the market will judge, whether that actually is a good sign or just a session for the camera to take photos and to boost the ego of both people. So time to tell what's going to happen this week and what's going to happen to our market. In terms of our sector, you can see that most sectors were up. That's based on the performance last week. So that's what we expect. The only thing that is bearish at the moment is telecommunication and consumer discretionary. In terms of our market, the market again before Christmas went down, recovered all of it and exceeded the last point before Christmas and went and zoomed up to nearly 6,650, well below the 6,850 that we saw in 2007. Last week candle is red, and depends what happens today. The market has already opened about 30 points higher, so it's just a matter to see what is likely to happen as far as our market this week. So in terms of the sectors, ANZ bearish, QBE bearish, Wesfarmers bearish for the very aggressive traders, and the strongest stock BHP, CBA, Newcrest Mines and Telstra, and all the rest happen to be either neutral or slightly bullish. So before our close, we don't know your financial circumstances, so this is our disclaimer. Everything I said today is only for general advice only, and before you take any action, remember to discuss your position with us or your intention what to do in the market, or you with your professional advisor. And if you have any questions, all you have to do is ask. We've got our email system. You can write directly to me at george@fssecurities.com.au, or you can call me on my mobile. If you're talking from overseas, you put 61 first, you don't put the 0. That's 61-411-259526. Happy trading, and I'll speak to you again.